Hi guys, and welcome to the Shirley Ryder Show. You're with Shirley Ryder and
Hi, I'm Jen.
Jen, Guitar Girl.
There are several different types of homelessness. Can you just tell us about these different types and what they mean?
Yeah, so there's chronic, which means low frequency of long duration.
Okay.
Yep. Episodic, which is currently homeless with at least 3 times being homeless in 1 year. And then there's transitional, which is where people are in temporary housing. And there's also hidden, which obviously means that we don't know the figures of those other people that are also homeless for one reason or another.
So, how many people do you think are homeless locally or in New Zealand? Or
Well, worldwide,
Yes.
there's apparently 2%, but 20% are in substandard housing as well.
Okay.
In New Zealand, there's 1%. Tauranga, just to add a little bit more to that, 20% said that were in housing or partial housing said they had no savings, and 14% could not survive day to day.
Gosh. Okay.
That's according to the City Council survey.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so of these homeless people,
Yeah.
do you think, do they want to be homeless? Do they want to work? Or what are the findings there?
Well, the findings were that not one single person that was asked wanted to be homeless.
Right.
And most of them wanted to work. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So, what can happen sometimes when people, are there obviously bad things can happen when you're homeless because you're vulnerable? What are some of these things that can happen?
Yeah, so some of the obvious things like, you can't shower, you're cold, there's no heating, lack of clothes, things like that, uncomfortable place to sleep, those are the more obvious things. Also hunger, but also, a lot of the time, things happen like you get beaten up or raped on the street, things like that.
Yeah.
That's in the short term, but in the long term, also there is a lower life expectancy by 20 years for people that are homeless than those that have homes.
Wow, that's quite a bit.
It is, yeah.
Gosh. So, what do you think is the main reason that people find themselves suddenly homeless?
Well, there's many reasons, but I suppose some of the reasons, I'd have to say mental health would be one of those reasons, because for example, over in America, a lot of the homeless are actually the war vets, which is disgusting, and of course they have mental health problems after coming back from war with PTSD. Also in New Zealand, our mental health system is not very good.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't have the coping skills and the coping mechanisms to get jobs and look after themselves. Also, people with addictions, although that makes up a lower proportion.
A lower percentage.
Then there's just people with general health problems. People, of course, that are involved in domestic violence that have ended up on the street. And of course, just people there must be some people that do make bad choices, but nobody chooses to be on the street. That's not an actual choice. He had a good job, he owned his own house. His marriage broke up, then he fell behind in the mortgage payments, had a mental breakdown, he couldn't cope, he turned to drinking, quit his job, home was repossessed. So basically he said that everything happened at once, including depression. He said you can't think straight when you're like that.
Yeah. He
stayed with a friend for a year. He said that the worst feeling of staying in that temporary accommodation was actually the feeling of powerlessness.
Yeah.
There's also another story, made-up name, Tony, who was an addict. Sort of a mixture, I suppose, of choice and coping mechanism.
Yep.
So he was working, but he did heroin at the same time, so that was kind of a choice. He ended up with a consequence of prison. Yeah. Then he chose when he came out to do heroin, so choice again. He couldn't get accommodation because of the heroin, which is a consequence. Yeah. And then he made a choice and went to rehab. Yep. He did 5 years, and he got off the drug. He was off the drug 5 years, I should say. So that was really good. But then his son died, so that was like his coping mechanism, which was to go back to the heroin. which was a choice, but it was a coping choice.
Yeah.
And then back to rehab, which was a choice, and then he quit for properly this time, which was a choice, and that now he helps homeless charities. So that's a choice. He's turned his negative into a real positive. And I would just say too, like for me, like, you know, I have my own personal experience. I wasn't exactly homeless on the streets, but so when I was diagnosed with cancer, because some of you may know that I was diagnosed with terminal cancer nearly 4 years ago, and so when that happened, I sold my house, and I was kind of in sort of a vulnerable position, and because of my house, I had a big mortgage and didn't really have a lot of money from it, you know, but I had enough to pay some bills and that kind of thing, and also get some help, you know. I use it towards natural health and things like that. But then being in that really bad headspace, I made poor decisions with my money, because you do. And so I did waste some money, which I probably shouldn't have done. And I ended up living with a friend. Then things didn't work out there, so I ended up being in a camping ground. So
that would have been
that was when I was having chemotherapy, so it wasn't ideal at all. So I was on my own with just a bed in a camping ground, and I couldn't even get a chair because it wouldn't fit through the actual the doorway, so I had to lie down. So just different ways. I mean, certainly I don't think most people are homeless by choice.
How do you think society contributes to people becoming homeless?
Well, I was listening to a little television broadcast briefly from Mike Hoskins, and he was talking about inflation.
Oh, yes.
Yes, now he was saying that in Auckland, between 2008 and 2018, the houses have gone up 90%.
Wow. So, I believe there are certain laws around homelessness. Can you tell us about the laws?
So, what I could see quickly was that, well, this applies to all of us actually. You can't sleep drunk behind the wheel.
No. Backseat?
You can sleep anywhere else if you're drunk, but not behind the wheel.
That makes sense.
You can beg, but begging can also be seen as solicitation, so you've got to be careful. And also, if a homeless person becomes aggressive, then the police can be called in.
Okay, because the person that they're approaching could feel threatened or complain.
I guess,
Okay. Okay, so what is being done to help either local, national or international? Do you know if anything...
For the homeless?
To help the situation with homeless.
So, just a few things. So, I know in London, these buses, and they're turning them into, like, one bus is like a wellness centre, then they have the skills type buses that people come on that are homeless, and they teach them how to get a job and things
so
like that.
Educational
buses. They've got a bus that they've turned into 20 bunks for people to sleep in. And I think you can stay there for 3 months. And then they've got a cooking bus, which I think is basically where you come in and you can use their bus for cooking and things like that. So it's sort of a self-care. So that's London. In Finland in 2008, they had a homeless policy change where they shut down the emergency centres and temporary dwelling places and renovated dwellings and apartments, and they also they renovated them into proper dwellings and apartments so people could live there. And they also added social housing through the country as well, rather than cutting it, which is what some countries are doing. And that was through a program called Housing First program. And now they are the only country in Europe where the housing problem has actually declined.
Wow, so well done.
And also, some of you probably know John Bon Jovi from Bon Jovi.
Oh yeah, go John Bon Jovi.
He's cool. He's made a kitchen for the homeless in America as well.
Wow.
In the US. Nationally, this place, Wellington City Mission, has scrapped food parcels, making a social supermarket. And how that works, it's like basically you can get free food there. I'm not sure what the ins and outs of it are, but I guess it's for the homeless. Auckland City Mission, I'm not sure what they do, but they have something as well. Then, of course, there are places you can ring, if you're having problems as a homeless person, like Citizens Advice, which is free, Women's Refuge, social housing, victim support. There's a place called the Love Suit Feed, I think it's called, in Rotorua. There's Bay of Plenty sexual assault. They'll have those through the country.
Yep.
And of course the police. Just something, of course there's temporary housing, but that isn't always good, because I've read actually about Rotorua, and they've got motels and things like that solely for the temporary housing. But what happens is that the gangs and that kind of thing move in, obviously, and then so you've got a solo mum living next door with a kid that's going to get drugs pushed onto them, or so some of the people are finding, the homeless people or whatever, actually finding it's actually better off to be in their cars than living in these places. So that's another thing too.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough too.
Yeah, and locally, so the City Council did a survey to help get funding for improved health and social and community funding, and I'm not sure where they are at with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gosh. Okay, so for those of us that want to help homeless people, what's the best way to help? Give money, give food. What are the findings there?
Yeah, so you see people like beggars on the street, you know, they're trying to get money. So basically, those people are normally addicts.
Yeah. And
so to give money addicts, they say that's not helping because it's enabling the addiction. Yeah. So basically, don't give money to beggars because they're pretty much addicts. They're not, even if they're homeless, they're homeless addicts.
Yeah.
I guess the best way to give is actually to help out with a charity.
Yeah.
Yeah, or give to a charity, or or give your time, to a charity or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess if I was going to give directly to a person, I'd probably give a blanket. But when I have offered things like food or blankets, sometimes they don't want it.
Which means they're after
just
something feeding.
After smokes or something. I don't know.
Gosh. Yes.
Yeah. So that's
a pretty heavy topic, but at least there's some questions there, and we all need to talk about it because we all know people that it could be only a matter of a month or so. I mean, look at what happened with lockdown. Suddenly customers were gone, they still had to pay their bills, people weren't getting enough pay. I mean, it can be...
We're all 2 or 3
steps... We're all very vulnerable.
Away from being homeless, basically, of one type or another.
One breathless morn, woke to a blood-red dawn, clouds billowing high, block the sun from the sky, cumulonimbus metal grey, pushing shadows in its way. All is quiet, all is still, and thunder rolls around the hill. You watch the lightning flash, you hear the thunder crash. Little bird flying high, you'd better come down from the sky. Find a place that's safe and warm, take shelter from the storm. You hold your pillow round your head, you curl into a ball in bed, regret still in your head, remembering things you could have said. You watch the lightning flash, you hear the thunder crash, pitter-patter little drops, pelting down like it won't stop, howling wind and driving rain, hail assaults your window pane. Feeling cold and alone, wondering just who you can phone. How did you end up on your own? You were had flown. You heard the lightning flash. You saw your window smash. Suddenly it's all done. Raindrops sparkle in the sun. Clouds have blown away to reveal a bright new day. You've seen the lightning flash, you heard the thunder crash.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you. Storm's over, folks.
It's time.
Thanks, bye.
See ya.